welcome to the solar eclipse in Libra, and that is happening in 2 days. And my name is Marlene Eales, and my main practice is the consciousness-based medicine of the BodyTalk system. And many of you I know are BodyTalk practitioners as well, or integrate that system. And I like to merge the themes of the moon cycles and planetary happenings with the sessions. So tonight our focus, or today, whenever you're going to be listening, our focus is on the solar eclipse happening in Libra. Oh, I'm just gonna turn my notifications down. And that happens in 2 days. I mean, it depends on where you are in the world, at what time, but it does happen. And I'm not sure in terms of visibility. Hi, Sherry. I'm not sure in terms of visibility, who's actually going to be able to view it. But it is a full solar eclipse. So that means that the moon will be in between the earth and the sun, and it gives us that beautiful big ring, and it really does reflect when you think about the moon being completely covered or covering the sun. It's very much about exposing the big shadow. And I would say that is definitely a theme that, when we're looking at Libra, which is the ruling sign of the 7th astrological house. Libra is, it really is about wanting to have harmony and balance. These are the things it seeks. And the 7th house is our relationship and partnership house. So, it's definitely the we sign. And so when we have this solar eclipse and this big shadow, it really is asking, how are we relating? How are we relating to ourselves, and how are we relating to others? And what shadow habits or patterns in our communications with others and with ourselves, like where might change want to happen? And from an astrological perspective, we're looking at sort of this eclipse season, and eclipses are very much about generally big transformative change. So oftentimes, depending on where this falls in your chart, in what house, and I did actually send out in my email a list of depending on what your sun sign is or your rising sign, how more specifically this solar eclipse can impact you. But whatever area it's impacting, it still does have to do with relationships and partnerships, and how we are being in those. And then I also took that kind of to a more micro level when we're looking at even relationships and partnerships in our bodies. So, how's everything internally getting along? Are we harmonious? Are we balanced? Or are things out of balance? Is there an area of our body that's having to pick up the slack because its partner isn't necessarily, able to do the job because perhaps too much activity or stress in our lives? And, when we look at that yin and yang as a representative of the masculine and feminine in each of us, that we more Western based thought and culture is definitely tends to be more on the yang side. So, it's like we're out there and activity is good and purpose and movement is good, whereas more of receptivity and the yin, more feminine functions are not as predominant. So often we can get burnt out, adrenal fatigue, and those kind of things, and how that can actually impact us internally. So, and that really, I feel, comes back to our relationship with ourselves, but it also reflects in, what are we agreeing to? That's one of the, I would say, shadow aspects of Libra is um, compromising at all costs. I want peace and harmony in my life and my relationships at all costs. But then that means, what am I giving up because I want those things? And so then it can question and challenge our own integrity. Is there a fair and balanced exchange in our lives? Are we doing too much or giving too much and not receiving? And what beliefs, what patterns, how we were raised, the influences around us, how have they influenced us? And these are the kind of themes I feel that may surface with the symbolism of this solar eclipse. There's the solar eclipse. When we're looking at the solar eclipse in Libra, we're looking at the sun being completely covered by the moon. And so they are, at a conjunction. So in astrology, we use these terms, and they're really aspects. That's the term, the technical term. So how is one planet aspected to another? How does one planet relate to another in what's happening in the stars at a given time? And so in Libra, we have, and I believe it's 21 degrees, we have both the sun and the moon at the same, in conjunction. And so, that their energy is merged and amplified. And then we have oppositions happening as well. And so there's another aspect of it's quite literally an aspect where we have the north node also in Libra, and it's always opposite the south node, which happens to be in Aries. And so of course Aries being really the axis, the polar axis or opposite of Libra. Aries is the sign of the first astrological house, and that is the me house versus the Libra we house. And so this is the energy of what I want, and my confidence and my energy versus what do I need to agree to in a relationship in order to have harmony? So it's just some interesting dynamics. So I just thought I'd share some of those before I go into the session. And just thinking if there's any other. So also Mercury is in Libra, and I will say, I don't know if many of you faithfully follow what's happening with the planets, but really quite recently we had something like 12 planets in retrograde, and that's exceptional. And so not only do we have the personal planets, which are the sun, the moon, Mercury, Mars, and Venus, those planets that affect us very personally where they're moving, but then also the outer planets, a lot of retrogrades. And so what are retrogrades? Often, symbolically, it represents having to go backwards or look backwards, things from the past resurfacing and coming up. And so what's just recently happened is that the personal planets are all now moving forward. So if you felt any kind of like, why am I not moving forward? That could be one reason. And so all of the planets, the personal planets, are now moving forward. So, and as is Mercury, and Mercury being in this sort of close to, in relation to Libra and this solar eclipse. Mercury is all about our communication. So I feel that there's something about how are we communicating? Are we communicating with clarity? Sherry's like, yay, yes. I was really happy to see that, and also kind of feel that a little bit in my life. And yeah, so I just wanted to share that aspect as well. That I mean, it's about this sort of yeah, it's all about communication, even short travel, those kind of things. So it could be travel with a partner or business travel. Mercury represents that, and because it's in the house of Libra, it could uh, influence our relationship dynamics. So I'm just going to bring up one more possible theme, and that is that eclipses are, when we're looking at the new moon in Libra, new moons typically represent a new beginning. So we're at the beginning of a new cycle, and it's oftentimes where we'd like to set an intention for what we'd like to see happening, over the next couple weeks to a month. But because it's a solar eclipse, that influence is about what it is that we're ready to let go of. So within this relationship partnership house, it may very well be a relationship. It could be a partner, but it could also be someone that's just more close to you, or even a certain way of communicating with someone that you have been close to, and that communication needs to change or would benefit a change. And so perhaps there's something about boundaries, and I brought up that word integrity, because it's being able to really tune into our relationship with ourselves. What is right for me in this? Am I integrity in what I might be agreeing to, or what I'm saying to this person? I read an article on this dynamic recently, and some of the themes that they discussed in this article, I'm sorry, I just can't remember it offhand, but was this sort of passive aggressive or being nice, because we want to be loved, and all those sort of beliefs and behaviors, those more subconscious drivers to how we're communicating and what we're agreeing to, and how they can really influence. So this is the awareness of seeing those potential aspects in ourselves, and an opportunity to shift those and to become more self-aware. Not so much, it's interesting because there's a lot of beliefs about, oh, you're so selfish if you start to think about yourself, but I like to use the word self-full. I'm really going to rally to have that added to a dictionary, because I think it's a wonderful word, to live self-fully, because it doesn't have the connotations of selfish, but it's acknowledging that we also need to fill ourselves up in order to be of service to others. So on that note, I'm going to invite you to just tune in, take some breaths. You can consider, let simmer some of the themes that I've just discussed. And you may already come into the session with a focus based on your knowledge of the dynamics at play in the stars, and what they represent, or my invitation email. So whatever is sort of surfacing for you as you take deep breaths, and allow your body just to really just release with that exhalation. And so if there's any tension or discomfort or even pain, just gently bringing your awareness to that area with your breath and with the exhalation, allowing your body to be supported by what you're sitting on or laying on. And with that, allowing with that breath, just releasing into the support, and that connection beneath you. And so I'm going to tune in and go into Mindscape, and invite the group energy into my Mindscape healing area, or wherever everyone wants to go symbolically in my Mindscape. So Okay, so when I invite the group in, it's like we've gone to a solarium at the top of of uh, a like a castle, and there's all these, we can see the stars all around us. And I have to say, there's a lot of activity that comes in. And so I'm just going to observe that activity and tune into whatever the priority is to balance first. Okay, so the first thing that's coming in is actually a symbol, and I had mentioned aspects. And so the symbol is that of a triangle, which is the symbol for an aspect called a trine. And a trine is a very positive aspect in astrology. It's a relationship between two luminaries, two planets, and the nature of the relationship is a very creative relationship. So, and it's a very manifesting relationship. This symbol, in that it's a relationship between two planets, but the creative nature of the relationship is that it creates a third quality. So it's the merging of these two qualities, which, in some ways is very sort of bringing the masculine and feminine together, right? Even a woman and a man creating a child. It's that really it's a symbol of something being manifested out of these two elements. And so that's the symbol that we're really bringing in to inform at least the first part of the session. And so I actually go through this symbol and start to work on the group energy here. And so I'm brought actually right into your brain and into the center of your brain, really at the sort of top of the brain stem. There's an area called the thalamus. For those that have joined me for group sessions in the past, I've mentioned the thalamus. For Parama body talkers, which is like a more advanced body talk, we focus on the thalamus a lot. So in a way, it's like a grand central station for sensory input in your brain. And so all of the information that's coming in from your external environment, your internal environment, it really goes through to the thalamus, and then the thalamus makes sense of it for you. So you can think of it as your world in a way, your beliefs, your attitudes, how you approach life, all these different aspects. And so I'm going even more specifically into an area that governs your sense of purpose and where you set your goals. And so that's at sort of this higher consciousness level of this area in the thalamus. It's called thalamus 4. And so the priority is to really energize this area with a circulation plug-in. So it's like enhancing all kinds of circulation to this area. And there is this further definition here of purification, of of clarification. Really, it's almost like I'm getting a sense of like just clearing out impediments or filters that are inhibiting the highest expression of this area of your sense of purpose and the goals, the movement that you create within this area. I'm just going to start making notes because I don't want to lose where I am here. Okay. Okay, so there's also a satellite coming in around this energizing formula, and it's a satellite of Mercury, and so it relates to and enhancing the communication aspects and the discernment aspects of this. So again, it's like clearing out. It's to really help to clear out for more clarity in this area for you. And okay. So this is linking into your cortices. So many of you know the cortices technique. So this is, there's a definition here of integration to help to integrate this formula and the balancing within this throughout your whole brain. And further details on that now. But there's like a definition of synaptic pruning. So for those of you that aren't familiar with synaptic pruning, so we have synapses and, you know, all these different, especially like as children. So children have a lot of synapses when they're learning, because, you know, as a child, as you're growing up, you're learning all kinds of things. And then they go through this pruning, usually around puberty. But then there's another pruning that comes in late teens, early 20s, because again, it's like these times of sort of intense learning. And then that whole pruning reflects in this discernment, right? What do I need to keep, and what's serving me, and what information is just not important, or what has been refined and condensed in a way. And so, and then it's to actually at the physical level to actually prune out. So there's this like minor pruning in a way to support this whole purification, clarification within your sense of purpose in that area. So we're going to tap this out now, and we're going to tap it out as the cortices technique. So you're most welcome to join me in this if you'd like, or you can just with the hand positions, or you can just take deep breaths. So I'm going to actually do the cortices technique, taking deep breaths, placing my hand on the very back of my head and tapping over the three brains, my head, my heart, and my belly. Okay. Yeah, so if you're following along with me, yeah, it's just usually for 2 breaths, and then I move my hand up to the next area and continuing to tap and take deep breaths. So this focus is in integrating this formula in really the sort of movement through the creative potential of the trine, as that relates to relationships at the broader level, and then going into this refinement and purification through the circulation plug-in in the anterior nucleus of your thalamus, with that further support of the discernment and communication of Mercury, and then integrating that with this synaptic pruning, more at that physical level for further enhancing clarity, mental sharpness. Okay. I'm just going to do a quick chat, check on the chat. So thank you for your enthusiasm, Sherry. It's great. All right, so let's go into what's next. So yeah, just staying with a few deep breaths again. So your breath is your body's scan. And when you take a deep breath, that helps to bring awareness to the sort of deeper tissues. And then when you release that breath, it's like helping to tune into the higher frequencies. So, okay, so the next part of the session, I'm going into balancing the pineal and the pituitary glands. How this is coming up again is like a yin yang, as these represent the pineal. It's representing masculine energy, and the pituitary gland representing feminine energy. So going into balancing pineal, pituitary, and really sort of going into more of a subsession on this, and within that relationship to balance like a consciousness of expectations of the archetypal roles of what we have come to believe or expect about a female or a male. And it's not so much about sort of what's external, it's more about in your closer relationships, and of course your relationship with yourself. And so then how those, like, helping to balance and really discharge emotional charges, sort of rigidity, beliefs about those roles, to support a more harmonious, less reactive, emotionally reactive responses within your relationships. And even, sort of some self-judgment is what's coming up here as well, right? So like this is where we get into the shoulds and expectations. Where do these arise from, right? All the stories all the stories we've been taught about, whether, and more often than not, it's the subconscious patterns that we grow up with, that our parents grew up with, that their parents grew up with, and then the sort of the cultural media, all of these different projections, and how they influence our own perceptions and thus our expectations, and how those expectations, like, the more expectations we have, the more we set ourselves up for disappointment in a way, right? So it's not to say that we don't have agreements and stuff like that. It's not so much about that as it is about more of these subversive levels, and more rigid archetypes. And so that's the first aspect of this, is balancing those expectations. And we're going to anchor that into your heart for individuation. So it's consciousness, expectations. Okay. And then Just gonna see if there's anything else with that. So I'm going to parcel that, but then I do have another link, and the link is taking me into your thymus gland. And so I'm working at the thymus gland, you know, both at the physical level in its role in and representation of your immune system and defense. And that's also the body mind quality that's coming up here is defensive patterns. Okay, so I'm going into a subsession on this. So defensive patterns, you know, we think about, yeah, it's like the armoring, right? Or the protection. It's about having a balance within that. So there's something about this that would like to have more balance. So going into the subsession takes me into your heart, and going into belief balancing within your heart. So emotionally charged belief. And so the belief is it is not safe to love. So it's like it's not safe to love others. And, you know, there's many of us. So we're all going to have our individual sort of flavor to this. So it's like when I see this, it's like I'm seeing it's not safe to love. And then there's a blank there. So that blank is what you fill in. And I'm not saying at a conscious level, but it's to more fine tune it to you. Okay, I just want to write that down. Okay. Okay. So, and there's a definition here of fear. And even further on that is the more physical manifestation of overreaction. So fear and overreaction. And then I'm linking into it's like in BodyTalk, we call these secondary matrices. So this is like an energy form that has it could have like a very strong belief to it or an identification to it that has built up over time. And this is coming up in the pericardium. So the pericardium surrounds your heart. And also the pericardium meridian being part of the fire element. So the heart meridian, pericardium, triple heater, and small intestine, all part of the fire element. And so when we're looking at the pericardium, because of its protection of the heart, and it's being very close to the heart, and what's coming up with this is it's not, it's about intimacy, something about it's not safe to be intimate. I'm just going to see if I need to refine this a little bit more. Okay, so again, this is, and I mean, I suppose in a way they always are, but it's like I'm getting a sense that this is more of a projected in that, or it's invasive, should I say. So what you were taught as a child about intimacy and so that, you know, that word can have different meanings for all of us, but it's represented by what it is to be close to someone, right? And all of what that represents. And there's also a quality of vulnerability with this as well. So these beliefs that in a way create more of that heart protection, right? That because this is coming up under that thymus gland. And so defensive defensive behavior or defensive patterns that are really wanting to shift and balance. So there's a further on this because there's this emotion of shame coming up with this. Okay. So when we're talking about these sort of matrices, one of the aspects we're looking at a certain area, which is represented by the pericardium, but then I'm also looking at, where has this been drawing energy from? And then I start to clear those energy cords as well. How this has been drawing energy from you and holding to sort of hold in place. And it's like when you think about a pattern like this, and we're talking about our immune system and then your heart and the energy that it takes to actually hold this in place for feeling safe. But how much more energy would we have for other things if we didn't have to hold this energy, right? So this is about really, it's like a liberating kind of freeing balance as well, to start to clear the power that this has held. So there's another aspect of this when I'm going through and looking at where this is drawing energy. Sort of, we have these sort of typical areas where I'm looking at, like the heart, as it represents your blood supply and nourishment and nerve supply. And so I've also got like the myelin sheaths, which represent the habits of this for self-protection, heart protection. And then I'm going into the sternum and going to the sternum bone. And when I'm going to the bone, often I want to look at, is there some kind of ancestral influence or ancestral cultural influence here? And what is coming up is it's actually two different, call them cultural beliefs. Yeah. And so one is more about the masculine, and it's like it's shameful. So it's going back to that shame. It's shameful for men to express weakness. So that's the one ancestral cultural belief that is coming up for balancing. So if you're a woman in a heterosexual relationship and you have this belief, and here you are with a man that, maybe all of a sudden starts expressing himself very emotionally, there may be a trigger in that. It's just interesting how this may express itself in our lives, right? So, but then as a man, there's that, armoring from that. So it's just interesting how these may express themselves. And then for more of a, so this is the other one. And again, the emotion is shame, and it is shameful for women to express sensuality and sexuality. So these are two cultural beliefs that relate to this vulnerability of fear of vulnerability and intimacy that's being cleared. Okay, so I just have to write this down. Okay. All right, so I'm just going to find out if there's anything further on this. So I'm going to bundle that up and that on that thymus subsession. Okay, so the next thing that's coming up is really linking your power, your heart, and your throat chakras. Together, and then there's a further definition here as well. It's like it's defined by self-expression with power and clarity. That's expressing my heart with power and clarity. And so this whole first part of this formula, the thymus gland balancing and the defense patterns and the heart balancing, and the pituitary pineal gland and these expectations linking into this self-expression, this power, heart, and communication. And we're going to tap this one out. So the hand positions I'm getting, if you'd like, you can place your hands over your heart, and welcome to join me in tapping this the second formula out with nice deep breaths, please. So the overall theme is definitely about our relationships, how we relate, both internally and externally, helping to shift defense patterns, moving into deeper self-acceptance for that, expressing intimacy and vulnerability, and then being able to express yourself with clarity and confidence from your heart. Nice shift with that one. Okay, so there's more. All right. So with BodyTalk, you never know if you're going to stay on theme or on agenda or whatever, and so it seems like we're kind of going off, but that's all right, because it's what the priority is. So the next thing that's coming up is to support the change of seasons. So we have a number of people that are from the southern hemisphere, so they're looking at moving from spring into summer, whereas we in the northern hemisphere really moving from autumn into winter. So but with that change, there's always change, more going from indoor to outdoor, outdoor to indoor, different air temperatures, and just different climate, and also the adaptability of that. So, pardon me. So what's coming up here is the water element, and doing a balancing initially within the water element. And so when I'm talking about the water element from the traditional Chinese medicine perspective, as opposed to the water element from the astrological perspective, right? There's probably some crossover there, but I'm looking at it from that 5-element perspective, and the water element does relate to the winter season. But it doesn't, it's always happening. It's always part of everything, because these elements aren't static. They're always moving. And so it relates to really our deep essence. It governs our kidney and bladder, our will to survive, our sexuality, sensuality for procreation, our bones, our bone marrow, and then up into our nervous systems, some other areas as well, adrenal glands. So within that, it's the relationship between the bladder and the kidneys that is coming up for balancing, and it's the yang aspects of the bladder. Really, so I mean, within every organ is the yin and the yang, but bladder is typically more of a yang organ, and so it's like the meridian runs up and down the back of our body through our brain. In a way, you can think of it as propelling us forward. That's how I always think about it when I think about our posture and the energy that moves us forward in life and gives us that willpower. So it is a yang kind of energy, and so it's the qualities of the yang energy of the bladder that we're balancing to the kidney and to the yin aspects of the kidney. So the kidneys are deep nourishment, and that is really what my focus is here. Is the depth of nourishment, this balancing, and that takes me into the next link in this, which is actually going into the kidney 1 points, which are at the base of your feet. And what comes up here is being able to really connect with the earth energy. So there's a real grounding quality to this, in being able to draw that nourishment, the energy of the earth up into your body, for that sense of support. And then also there's another kidney point. I'm just going to look something up here. Yeah, it's kidney 16. And so this is what's coming up with this. I think it governs quite a lot of different things, a lot with digestion, but the quality that's coming up is the movement through the kidney meridian. So it's helping to move any blocks or challenges through the kidney energy, so that nourishment, that energy from the earth is flowing through. So activating both of these points, and again, the focus on this accessing this deep nourishment. So we can tap this out, and no particular hand positions for this. Just nice deep breaths and tapping. And if you like, you can bring your awareness to the base of your feet and imagine that you're actually breathing in through the base of your feet, and that energy is coming up through the earth, and it's just traveling right into the bones of your legs and your feet and your knees. And like as you breathe in, it's just continuing to travel up through your whole skeletal system, your nervous system, into your brain, your kidneys. Just really energizing that whole water element system. To support the strength and nourishment for the change of seasons. Okay, so that is our session for today, and I just say thank you so much, everyone, for joining me again. And I will be doing another session in a couple of weeks. We have another eclipse. I think this one is in a full moon eclipse in Aries. So again, kind of playing on that dynamic of the me, we, we're going to the me now. So yeah, and it'll probably be on the Thursday at the same time. My life is starting to settle a little bit again. So I do hope you join me, and thank you so much for sharing your energy with me today. And we'll see you hopefully in a couple of weeks. Yeah, you're very, very welcome. Oh, nice to connect with some people I haven't heard in a while. Oh, you're very, very welcome. My pleasure. Yeah.